The reason why the world is falling in love with Jiu-Jitsu is because it changes the practitioner's operating system more profoundly and in less time than any other activity that we know of. Every single time you step on the mat, you're being reprogrammed, literally, as to how you face adversity in your life.
I think you gotta have a dream.
The School of Greatness.
Really? Yeah.
Please welcome Lewis House.
Welcome back, everyone, to the School of Greatness. Very excited about our guest. We have the inspiring Rener Gracie, who is a third-generation Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu master of the legendary Gracie family. My man, so great to see you. And I just took my first Jiu-Jitsu class from you 10 minutes ago, and I quickly realized that I'm inefficient as a human being. That if I get into a fight, probably I'm going to hurt someone the wrong way. Someone's going to hurt me the wrong way. And I don't have the skills that I thought I once had. You know, being a former pro football player, a decathlete All-American, a professional handball player with Team USA as well, you know, training with Olympians in boxing, I actually realized how someone so much smaller than me, with probably minimal skills and understanding of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, could probably, destroy me in a one-to-one match with the right setting. And so thank you for letting me know of how much more I have to grow as a human being to really feel a sense of inner peace and confidence. And I have inner peace until just now. So now I know that I need to master a new skill, and especially with the world feeling sometimes out of control, or our own worlds feeling out of control. When we learn how to master ourselves and learn the principles that you're going to talk about today, about this book, the 32 principles about harnessing the power of Jiu-Jitsu to succeed not only in business and relationships, but in your life, then I feel you can have true inner peace. So I'm excited that you're here. And before we dive into the book and into the background of how you became a master through your family and through your grandfather, who was, I guess, one of the founders of the UFC, why do you think Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is something that everyone should at least take a boot camp of classes over any other type of fighting techniques?
Yeah. Well, thank you for having me, and thank you for trusting me to guide you in that first lesson.
You didn't break my arm, which is good.
Right.
You didn't strangle me.
I almost felt like us sitting down to talk about principles of Jiu-Jitsu applied to life and business and relationships. It was hollow if you didn't know where all of my enthusiasm and where all of my passion came from.
Yes.
So I'm so happy that you trusted me to try Jiu-Jitsu today and have your first class. And the fact that it shattered some of your dreams, it reminded you of some of your vulnerabilities.
Yes.
It kind of like really just gave you a whole new perspective on where you live and where you exist in the world relative to other people with these skill sets.
Well, yeah, here's the interesting thing, because I feel safe. You know, when I walk around, when I'm with my girlfriend, I feel like when I look around, I could take on anyone. Maybe it's like ego, or maybe it's just my ignorance or my naivety, or maybe it's just like I work out hard, I train hard, I'm strong, I'm athletic, I can run away from stuff also. I know I can escape something if they can't grab me, right? And so I just feel like I have awareness, and if I need to, I can sprint and get out of it. But now noticing that if someone comes behind me and grabs me, I may not have that skill. If they put me in a chokehold real quick, I may not know what to do. And that's a scary thing, knowing that when there's a scenario that you could have control over, but you don't, that's a scary thing to be aware of. And it doesn't mean I'm like terrified now. It just means, okay, there's more to learn.
Well, and furthermore, you're not just feeling, this idea of I could escape, I'm an athlete. That's one thing. There's another liability in all of this, which is if you were to get into a fight, because remember, if you run from the fight, your girlfriend is still behind you, and she's not as fast as you. You can't leave her in the train station, and while you run upstairs and go she's in trouble too. Yeah. So if a violent situation were to happen and you choose to intervene, the problem is, as athletic and powerful and strong as you are, you're more of a liability than an asset.
Right.
And I think that's what you realized today as well, as we went through these techniques, is like in all the situations that we contemplated, and I said, what would you do here? And you're like, well, I would just punch from here. What you have to realize is you break your hand, you break their face, as we discussed, you brutalize the person. So at the end of the fight, even if you won the fight, you lost the war, because you go to the hospital with a broken hand and the medical bill and you get served that lawsuit later for excessive use of force. Because look how strong and big you are.
Yeah.
Any jury's going to look at you and say, why'd you do that to the poor guy who spit on your girlfriend? You see what I'm saying? You went from being the victim to being the culprit. So you're a liability because up until this point in your life, starting today with your first jiu-jitsu class, you only knew how to fight fire with fire. Starting today, you learn how to fight fire with water.
Wow. Let's go. It's great, man.
You feel me?
We'll put some of this B-roll in from it as well. We'll have the full workout and demonstration on another video linked up as well.
Now, in terms of why it's addicting, right? In terms of what's all the buzz about, what's all the hype about in terms of jiu-jitsu, I think it's very profound in everyone who does it, but for those who don't, it's very misunderstood. The reason why the world is falling in love with jiu-jitsu is because it changes the practitioner's operating system more profoundly and in less time than any other activity that we know of.
Explain.
Yes. So what that means is there are some profound psychological shifts, reprogramming that happens once you start doing jiu-jitsu that you'd be hard-pressed to find anywhere else. And there are three. Number one, how you face your problems. Number two, how you face other people, adversaries. And number three, how you face yourself. Okay, when we talk about facing your problems, conventionally speaking, if someone were to walk into this room right now and there were two people fighting, one person was on the top, one person was on the bottom, automatically the bottom person's losing the fight, top person's winning the fight.
Mm-hmm.
That's an automatic. Automatic.
Two random people? Or
Yeah, dude, even if we were fighting, even if you and I were fighting and I was on the bottom, right? They would walk in and say, look at this big guy on top of this little guy. He's losing, he's winning. It's automatic. Now, in jiu-jitsu, not only is this not true, but in a very real sense, the opposite is true. Because jiu-jitsu teaches us to be underneath in very uncomfortable positions and not only be comfortable, it's more than that. It teaches us to win in what so many others see as worst case scenarios. Mm-hmm. I demonstrated when I was under you and I was telling you to slap me in the head and you couldn't, how quickly I snuck into a triangle choke. So you went from the dominant top position to tapping out in a matter of 5 seconds. And you didn't really know what happened to you. And my point is to the general public, they don't understand that you can be in a worst case scenario and win. And when you practice jiu-jitsu, it reprograms your brain to that reality. Number two, how you face other people. From an evolutionary standpoint, larger members of a species consistently defeat smaller, weaker members of the same species. Larger gorilla annihilates the smaller gorilla when fighting for territory or a mate. A larger squirrel will annihilate a smaller squirrel, weaker squirrel, when it's fighting for a nut. This is normal. But humans are uniquely suited to violate the natural order of things, the biological natural order of things, to learn skills and process information that can actually give them a chance to defeat a larger, stronger member of the same species. And jiu-jitsu is, proven over 100 years now, the fastest way for someone to accomplish that.
Wow.
Number three, how you face yourself. 99.9% of the world, including all of the viewers watching right now and everyone listening right now, have never tried a jiu-jitsu class because they don't feel capable. They feel too old. They feel too young. They feel too fat. They feel too skinny, too tall, too short. Every excuse you can imagine, they're giving themselves those excuses as to why not to do jiu-jitsu. But for the lucky few who make it onto the mat, not only do they realize that their fears or their beliefs about their inabilities or incapabilities are not true, they realize that they're more capable in the very bodies that they were born with than anything they ever imagined. And the analogy I like to use is like a Swiss Army knife, right? Every human being in the world I see as a Swiss Army knife. But the crazy part is all of them are existing having only ever used the knife feature. Mm-hmm. Literally the knife, the blade. These people have no idea that they have a tweezer, they have a Phillips head, they have a nail file, they have a magnifying glass, they have scissors. And the actual most robust Swiss Army knife, I looked it up a few nights ago, has 33 tools on it. And what jiu-jitsu does is it teaches you how to use your body, you felt that today, in ways that you never imagined possible to acquire leverage over your opponent.
Wow.
So every single time you step on the mat, you're being reprogrammed literally as to how you face adversity in your life. Number one, the problems you thought were insurmountable are surmountable. Number two, the people you thought were undefeatable are defeatable. And number three, the body you thought wasn't capable is capable. And this is why Jiu-Jitsu is so addicting, because it makes what was never before possible absolutely possible. And initially, this reprogramming happens as a function of learning techniques. For example, today, I put you down, I got on top of you, what would you do? You struggled. I can't, Henry, I don't know. Switch roles. And then I showed you a move and you're like, whoa, 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 that was awesome. And you did it and you're like, all right, I believe that what I thought wasn't possible is possible. And then I did it a second time and a third and a fourth and a fifth. And before you know it, all these techniques are giving you solutions, Lewis, to problems that always existed that you never knew were surmountable, that were achievable and overcomable. So now you're like, man, this is amazing. Give me more techniques. And that addiction will last for several years, 2 or 3 years, where you're like, give me more moves to solve problems. But what eventually happens for every long-term jiu-jitsu practitioner is they realize, after learning hundreds, eventually thousands of techniques, individual solutions to individual problems, is they realize that there are fundamental techniques that hold this entire thing together. A rather limited set of 32 principles make every one of those techniques possible. So essentially, we have an alphabet to our jiu-jitsu language. And once you identify what those 32 principles are in your jiu-jitsu, you become capable of creating techniques in situations where you don't have a technique for. And it becomes magical. You could put me in any position right now on the ground, hold me however you wanted. If I know a technique, I'll deploy it. If I don't know it, I'll make it up on the spot as a function of the foundational principles that make all the moves possible. And then once I create a technique using 2, 3, 5, any selection of these principles, I'll make it up on the spot. You will be blown away because you'll think it's a move that I've known for years, but I just made it up right now. And this ability to improvise is only possible once you become a student and a practitioner of the principles of Jiu-Jitsu. And then the real breakthrough happens when you realize that these 32 principles are not limited in their deployment in combat situations, but that they have equal potency in every aspect of personal and professional life.
There's so much I wanted to ask you about it during that. But first I heard you say there's 3 main things that you face. You face your problem, or how you face your problem, how you face other people, and how you face yourself, right? Is that the 3?
That's exactly right.
What is the biggest problem that you face today?
That's a great question.
Of these 3, is it, other people, yourself, or problem?
The biggest problem I face today is one that we are tackling together right now. Is we have the most powerful fighting system known to man ever in terms of Jiu-Jitsu. And when I say most powerful, I'm not saying other arts aren't valuable. I'm saying the one that can do the most for the people with the least.
Really?
Yes, that's what makes Jiu-Jitsu the best.
How many martial arts practices are there?
Good question. I would say
what are the main?
Well, I would say, you're talking about the karate, kung fu, taekwondo, kickboxing, boxing, judo, sumo, wrestling, savate, shoot fighting. Then you start to get like variations of those, right? Like those are the ones, Jiu-Jitsu.
But maybe there's 10.
Yeah, I would say 10 to 20, just because I don't want to be Krav Maga. Like you have these other, but then each one of those has kind of like different denominations of the same religion, right? There's like other variations of it. So there are dozens and dozens of martial arts, and they all have great things to offer. And if you trace back to the roots of what each one was designed for, they neutralize that particular concern. We just happen to be lucky in Jiu-Jitsu that ours was designed by our grand masters, Helio and Carlos Gracie, to help a smaller, weaker person prevail against a giant. That was it. That's all that had to happen. Small, weak men against larger, stronger, aggressive, crazier, meaner, uglier men. And then eventually the spillover to women and children is automatic because women in a self-defense situation or a child in a bullying encounter, they need equally efficient solutions. But to your question, what's the problem? The problem is this. We have the most powerful martial art on the planet. We have the most powerful promotional vehicles for this martial art. The UFC.
Yeah.
You got Joe Rogan. You got Jocko. Now we got Lewis and the School of Greatness advocating for Jiu-Jitsu. And you see it in movies now. In Avatar, the guy on the scene on top of the mountain, he chokes out the dragon that he strangles, and then he submits it, and then he rides the thing. That's jiu-jitsu influence in the movie. So the point is, we have the most powerful art, the most powerful promotion vehicles, but yet 99.9% of the human population has never stepped foot on the mat. So my biggest problem that I face is, as someone who is very proud of being a member of this iconic family that bring this art to America and to the world, my job isn't done until everyone is doing jiu-jitsu. And the reasons they don't do it, I named a few. There are others. But it's my job to not only make it desirable and known to everyone by introducing people like yourself to the art and showing that introduction and showing that it's safe and it's fun and it's effective and anyone can do it. And all of their fears are unfounded, but also to create the vehicles through which the world can learn jiu-jitsu in a safe and structured way. Because there are lots of jiu-jitsu schools, and unfortunately, it's such an unregulated industry that many of them teach jiu-jitsu in ways that are both confusing, unsafe. Injuries happen quite frequently, and also contextual relevance isn't always the case when people are learning. There's a lot of emphasis on aspects of jiu-jitsu that do not give a brand new student the sense of confidence and empowerment that you were introduced to today, and that we try to do with every one of our students that we help learn this art.
So of all the, call it 20, 30 different martial arts, you get a black belt the same size in jiu-jitsu versus a black belt of the same size and weight and shape in another martial arts, the other top martial arts, which one typically would win?
Jiu-jitsu every time.
Really?
100 years have proven it.
Really?
That's what we've done, Louis. This is the whole point.
Wow.
This is why we're sitting here today. This is why you know about the UFC.
Yes.
This is why the UFC was born. This is why the UFC had staying power. This is why the Gracie family is known all over the world. This is why the U.S. Army completely rewrote their hand-to-hand combat manual to be based on Gracie combatives and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu techniques that we taught them 20 plus years ago when the UFC first came out. Or now 30 years. So this is the whole point. This is why this is so remarkable. And I'm saying this not to be boastful. I'm saying this out of pride and excitement of the fact that I'm part of a family that has completely flipped martial arts on its head. And when people ask, what's the biggest thing that the Gracie family has done? I think that the Gracie family has completely violated and redefined the distance from which a fight is fought. For the longest time, you think Chuck Norris, Bruce Lee, movies, Hollywood really influenced, but they're doing what looks good on camera. And as any actor or fight choreographer will tell you, what looks good on camera and what really works are two separate things, right? Like my wife worked for the WWE for 6 years. So camera versus reality, it's a whole different world.
It doesn't look good when you're just laying on top of someone.
No, it's not glorious. It's unremarkable. It's boring.
Now, why though, when I watch the UFC or the Ultimate Fighter, it seems to me like they're always standing up and they're always punching, kicking. They're keeping their distance. They're trying to get the elbows in the face.
So what has happened?
Why don't they just all do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu?
It's been 30 years. They all do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So, for example, my brother and I are both black belts, and when we spar, it's like two grizzly bears, right? And no one really has an advantage. If you make one mistake, you get caught. But for the most part, it's a draw, like very tight. And it wasn't always. I'll tell you that story separately. Like he beat me up for many years, and then I had a breakthrough. But the point is, it's very neutralized. So what you see today is everyone does Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
They're all great at it.
Everyone's great at wrestling. Everyone's great at kickboxing, right? But here's the whole point. In the world, the population of the world, not everyone can kickbox because we don't want to get punched in the nose. And not everyone can wrestle because it's a relentless sport that is incredibly unforgiving. And there's a reason why you graduate high school and you're done wrestling, maybe a little college, but after that, your body simply can't take it. And it's injurious. It's so intense. Unlike Jiu-Jitsu, which my grandfather did till 95 years old on the farm, training till the very end. So the beauty is, MMA is a great vehicle for promoting Jiu-Jitsu and the arts, but the general public looks at that and what they say, Louis, is they go, I don't want to get down. I don't want to do this. It's too violent. I don't want to do that thing in the cage. But what I'm here to say, and why we've done Gracie breakdowns, we have a YouTube channel with 500 million views of people who want to see videos of how these techniques come to life like we did today, where the technical side of it, and then my goal and my cry at the end of every video is, listen, it is for you. You can do Jiu-Jitsu. You can do Jiu-Jitsu. It's for all of us. But someone has to convince them to get off the couch, step on the mat for the first time, and the teacher that is trusted with that first class has to make sure they don't get hurt, they're safe, And what they learn makes sense to them, like it did for you today, where you say, wow, when's class number 2?
Right. Teach me more.
You feel me?
Teach me more.
There you go.
Exactly.
I give you the first class for free.
Yeah.
You get hooked, and then I'll catch you on the back end. You know,
Exactly.
like, but my point is, it's so easy to ruin it. But when you ask my biggest problem, that's my biggest problem. The best martial art on the planet, the biggest promotional vehicles, and 99.9% of the population has never tried a class. And my job is to flip that so that only 0.1% is remaining when I'm done.
Wow. So did your grandfather start this martial art, or how did this actually come about where he learned these things and made it, a thing?
Yeah. So my great uncle Carlos Gracie was introduced to Jiu-Jitsu as it was practiced in Japan by a Japanese immigrant who went to Brazil. Once he learned this Japanese art, he became very fanatical about it. He loved it. But my Carlos was the oldest brother. My grandfather was the youngest brother. So while his older brother started practicing and were quite effective in their practice and having fun, they started teaching it in Brazil. My grandfather was the little runt of the family, and doctors prohibited him from doing any athletic activity because he suffered from vertigo type the conditions where he could run and he would pass out from exhaustion. So he was limited. So he dropped out of school in the 3rd grade, and then he basically is sitting watching his brothers practice all day, every day as a matter of course. So his brothers were training. He was only observant. One day, a student showed up for a private class with Carlos, the oldest brother, but my grandfather was there to watch, but Carlos was absent. So the student says, he's just there, Carlos, no Carlos, no Carlos. Eliu, my grandfather, was there to observe, around 16 years old. And Eliu said, hey, Carlos isn't here. If you would like to, I'll go through the class with you and just go through the techniques until my brother shows up. What do you say? And the man, much older gentleman, said, yeah, of course, kid, let's go. They do the class. They complete the class. Carlos shows up very apologetic at the end. And then the student says, hey, no problem. In fact, I had a class with your younger brother, and if you don't mind, I would like to keep training with him from now on. So a student promoted my grandfather to a teacher. Then off he went. He's having the best time of his life learning jiu-jitsu, but he's realizing there's certain limitations in these techniques for his body that made it difficult with his limited physique to be effective. So adaptations began.
So that was the Japanese jiu-jitsu.
Yes, kind of coming in,
and
yes.
now you're transitioning.
So what's happening is the emphasis and the techniques and the prioritization of leverage and timing and patience and energy efficiency over brute strength and speed and power. That shift is happening in their hands. And my grandfather went from the youngest brother to becoming the family champion, such that Carlos was now organizing challenge matches against every martial artist you can imagine in Brazil.
Wow.
Was challenged by my grandfather. Some accepted, some did not. The Brown Bomber, Joe Louis, the heavyweight boxing champion in America, went to Brazil. My grandfather challenged Joe to a fight, and Joe did not accept the challenge. So this is what's happening in Brazil during this era, way before the UFC was ever even dreamt of. So then my dad is born into this legacy of fighting, and his brothers. My grandfather had 9 children. Carlos had 21 children, 30 kids, 105 grandchildren between the two of them, including myself. So my dad is born into this fighting legacy. From day one, you're learning jiu-jitsu. He comes to America after graduating law school in Brazil, comes to America in 1978, gets established right down here in Hermosa Beach, Southern California, and every person he meets, he invites for a free class. And then that person invites another friend. They get a free class. The friend gets a free class. Everyone you tell gets a free class. And before you know it, the garage is full. And during that time, challenge matches are happening where people who practice multiple martial arts are like, hey, they go tell their karate master, come to Torrance and come try this. Come to Hermosa Beach. This jiu-jitsu stuff is really good. The karate master says, no, I don't agree with it. I don't think it would work on me. They come back and tell my dad, yo, my master doesn't think this would work on them. And my dad goes, hey, well, tell your master. And if he ever wants to try it out, it'd be my pleasure.
Right.
And then the master gets told that and they say, yeah, I accept the challenge. And then they show up in the garage.
Wow.
And these challenge matches are happening. No rules, no referee. It's just a fight on a mat. Anything goes. Do whatever you want. We fight until someone's knocked out, broken, or taps out, or gives up, whatever it is. And they would get choked out like this time and time. Oh my gosh, bro. These guys are practicing breaking boards for 30 years. They simply cannot believe that they cannot land one punch for their life.
They can't land one?
One.
Why can't they?
Distance management, like I showed you.
Yeah.
When we talked about the Mike Tyson situation in our class. Whoever manages the distance manages the damage that can be done. And the reason why people get knocked out in fight is because they stand at the striking range. You know this from being a boxer.
Yes.
From standing at a striking range, and they give and they get, and they give and they get. But if I stand too far away, meaning 6 feet away, two arm lengths, you can't punch or kick me.
If you're too close, you can't get a great punch.
Yes, and when you come towards me, Lewis, to try to punch me, I come in.
Yeah.
And I do so without any warning or notice. And I got you now, and I've grabbed a hold of you. And all it takes is one. So for you, You have to hit me and knock me out. And that's a very hard, you can throw 100 punches and never knock me out. I just have to grab you once.
Right.
And if I grab you, your life is over unless I choose to spare your life, which I will because I'm a compassionate human being. But my point is, I can do whatever I want with you once I grab you one time. And this is what happened in all these challenge matches.
So you, right now, versus Mike Tyson in his prime, you would win every time.
You got to choose where to put your money.
But that's what you believe.
I'd put my house, all my kids, all my money, everything I own, I'd put on that and I'd double it the next day.
Wow. Unless he got lucky with one punch.
Yes, my point is this. He has to get lucky with one punch, which if you see two professional boxers boxing, how hard is that? It's hard to get that punch.
It's hard.
Right? And if I stand 6 feet away, there is no punch. And then when I close the distance and I grab
over.
these punches are no longer powerful because I'm too close.
Wow.
And to be clear, Royce challenged Mike at his prime. Royce, there was a challenge where Royce Gracie challenged Mike Tyson publicly, and Mike did not accept the challenge at his boxing prime. So this has already happened. And Mike
Unless
knows.
it was boxing rules.
Of course.
Then
then it's suicide.
Yeah.
The same way MMA, or what we now call MMA, but back then is normal Vale Tudo, which is called everything goes in Portuguese. Vale Tudo, Mike versus any member of the Gracie family, and they're athletic, healthy, state of 25, 35, 40 years old. Mike has no chance. And he knows this and he respects this because he's playing a sport.
Right.
Boxing is a sport. It's one sliver of a fight. Jiu-Jitsu is a complete fighting system that covers the striking, the distance management, the distance closure, the taking the fight to the ground, on the ground, whether we're on top or on bottom, whether you're striking me or not, makes no difference. If you practice Jiu-Jitsu in its fullest form, you have control of every aspect of the fight.
Have you ever had to use this in the real world?
Yeah.
Like out in public? Have you ever had to submit
12 years
someone?
old.
Really?
12 years old.
As an adult, have you had to also or no?
Yes. And here's the irony of it all. So when I was 12, I fought. When I was...
Like out in the streets?
Yes. When I was 35, I verbally de-escalated because I knew how to fight.
Right.
That's the key in all of this. The number one skill everyone listening and watching right now needs for self-defense is the ability to set boundaries.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's so critical. And this isn't true with just strangers. It's also true in our personal relationships, in our intimate relationships, right? It's so important. Boundary setting. But let's take it to the self-defense realm for a second.
What was this at 35? What happened?
Oh, I'm going to tell you, but I'm going to frame it.
Okay.
Okay? So self-defense is boundary setting. Because let's say you're a woman at a gas station pumping gas and someone is walking towards you. You don't know who they are. They might be even nicely dressed. Let's just make it less suspicious. There's a normal looking guy walking towards you. For a woman in that situation,
non-threatening.
No, we don't know. We don't know.
Yeah.
That's the whole point. A woman doesn't know. But let's say her senses tell her, doesn't feel right. There's nobody else in the gas station. He's moving directly towards her. There's no car next to you. There's no store over there. He's not. Where is he going? So if she starts to feel that feeling, the number one thing she must do is turn and look directly at him and say, don't get any closer.
Wow. Set a boundary.
Stay right there.
Yeah.
If he takes one more step, I said, don't get any closer. She has to escalate. Because when you set a boundary, you've now created the opportunity to reveal intention. If you don't set a boundary, you don't ever have a way of assessing truly the intention. If you say, hey, don't get any closer, and he backs up and says, I'm so sorry, ma'am, you dropped this.
Right.
I was going to give it to you, but I can see that I shouldn't have walked towards you when you're by yourself. I'm so sorry. I'll leave it here. No harm, no foul. Everyone's happy. Everyone went home safely. Amazing. Or if you say, hey, don't step any closer. And he takes one more step by saying, but ma'am, I just want to make sure if you need any help. I don't need any help. Stay where you are. You see how he tried to give her the runaround, the conversational web, we call this. When he tries to give her that runaround and wrap her into that web of random mumbo jumbo question and answer, and just random conversation to trick her to get closer, he's trying to get closer so he can take action without being detected. The point is, you'll never know that it's game on until you set that boundary. So when we teach women, when we teach children dealing with bullies, and even when we teach men in a road rage incident, I'm going to say, guys, you guy gets out of the car, he might be upset. You need to tell him, stay right where you are. I can see you're upset. I'm going to take my car out of this parking spot because I know you can see that you think it was your spot, but don't take one step closer. And if he takes another step, guess what? It's on. Do you understand? You set a boundary, you reveal the intentions. Here's the problem. Here's the problem, Louis. It gets worse. Whether it's a child, whether it's a woman, whether it's a man, People don't set boundaries that they aren't capable of enforcing.
They're false boundaries.
Yeah, they're hollow.
Right, they're
You
hollow.
can't say, don't take one more step. If them taking one more step,
You're screwed.
your whole system's going to go, you're going to hardwire and you're going to trip out and run in circles and run. Do you understand? You don't have the backup. So here's what this is all about. Learn how to fight so you never have to fight.
Yes.
That's the whole game. I don't get into fights as an adult because I'm so empowered with jiu-jitsu that there isn't an altercation that I can't verbally de-escalate. It doesn't exist unless someone is in the act of violently assaulting someone,
Yes.
in which case I will intervene and put out that fire with water and compassion. And I'll protect the aggressor, I'll protect the victim, and I'll protect myself. We all go home, no one goes to the hospital. That's my ability and my commitment if I have to intervene. So unless, of course, I have to use a higher level. I'm not to say that if I don't catch you in an arm bar and you have a knife in your hand, the arm is coming off until you drop the knife. I'll take the arm off and I'll go home and hang it on my mantle. So to be clear, I have the ability, but I also have the ability to do everything I want to do without hurting anyone. Yes.
And you never had to. Have you ever had to intervene in a fight?
So the situation that I had, I was at the Anaheim House of Blues for an Ozo Motley concert. Amazing band. Uli, one of the head guys there, is a black belt of ours. He was performing, and I was in the crowd. It was me and my wife. And there's a guy next to me who literally created his own mosh pit.
Just banging people.
Crazy.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no one is moshing right now. And I'm not even in the front. I'm like way back, like where the bar is. I don't drink, right? Just water and watermelon juice. But like I'm back where the bar is, and I'm hanging out, like getting a good view, like a good eye level. And he's just throwing a mosh. And in my mind, I'm like, I can move, but he will make someone else's life uncomfortable. You feel me? Like this is inappropriate. He's tripping on some drugs or alcohol or both. And I said, if he bumps me one more time, I will have to make this clear.
He bumped you.
Bro, it was crazy. So yeah. So he freaking comes in, he bumps again. Boom, he hits me again. Right next to him, I grab him by the neck and I say, hey bud, I see you're having a really good time.
Wow.
I say, but do me a favor. Do not bump into me one more time or we're going to have to dance. And then I alleviated my squeeze.
What happened?
Okay. And there was no more mosh pit.
Wow.
So
you never had to get in a fight then. You've always been able to de-escalate.
I've had some challenge matches where guys come into the school and say, I believe in kickboxing, I believe in jiu-jitsu, let's fight. Boom, so somebody else. But out in the streets, I have not in my recollection.
Right.
Except for the challenge matches in the fight when I was younger, when I was a kid. And then every week we put on gloves and we punch each other while we practice in a safe way. But not really having to. Yeah, nothing out in the street.
That's what I mean.
Because that's the challenge, right? And when it's almost like, imagine if I carried a gun everywhere. You feel me? Mm-hmm. Always. And I spoke to people as if I had a gun. How many fights do you think I would get in? None.
Right.
Because they know I have a gun.
Yeah.
I don't carry a gun. But I carry the confidence of someone who has a gun. So I speak the same way.
Right.
And they feel it. And if anything push comes to shove, right, if the combative energy of an interaction starts to escalate, calm, assertive, right? Cesar Milan, who I've taught as well.
Yeah, he's great.
Calm, assertive. Listen, man, I can see you're having a good time. Do me a favor. Don't bump into me one more time or it's going to be a problem.
Yeah.
And when you talk like that, he thinks either I have a gun or I have a jiu-jitsu black belt.
Yeah, exactly.
He doesn't know. And he doesn't want to pay to find out.
Mm-hmm. What is someone with your type of skill sets and your decades of experience and training, not only you mastering it for yourself, but also you teaching and empowering others to become black belts eventually and watching them overcome challenges? What does someone like yourself deal with insecurity? Do you have insecurities still that you face? Is it a different type of insecurity or fears that you face with this? Or is it just less and more confidence than without the black belt or without the training?
The heavy question. When we talk about my insecurities or my fears, I think my biggest fear is letting my sons down. You feel me? Like, we get one go at this. I have two boys, 7 and 4. And I'm like, I've seen a lot of people kind of play their movies out and the movie ends in a way that, was not either what they wanted or what they intended. I have a vision for how my movie ends and where it goes. And my biggest fear is that I fall short of how I anticipate my movie going, right? When it comes to, right, living up to, I think, my kids' expectation of me, or living up to my full potential as a father, as a husband. That's my only big fear, big insecurity. Other than that, professionally, it's very good. I've achieved heights that I never imagined would be possible from someone who, right, grew up in a martial arts family, right, for all intended purposes, a karate family, right, to the general public, wearing a uniform and practicing jiu-jitsu moves on the mat, never went to college, right, no degree, but now, sitting at the helm of multiple very successful businesses in and out of jiu-jitsu. So professionally, I'm very happy. Relationship-wise, it's great. I have a wonderful marriage with a wife that I've been with for over a decade now, and it's just, everything is great,
Wow.
right? So for me, it's like, how does this movie end? Where do I go? And do I continue to be the father to them that I know I can be? And I just don't want to let them down, and that's it.
How do people, after they go through jiu-jitsu training for a while, how do their intimate relationships usually tend to go?
Yeah.
Maybe they're in a challenging one and they get out of it, or they improve it, or are people in jiu-jitsu single and divorced? Are they more like, okay, they see the value of actually committing and being in an intimate relationship and honoring your partner? How is the community overall with healthy, conscious relationships? And what does it teach you about
Sure.
intimacy?
Great question. There is a very common thing that occurs on the green mats in jiu-jitsu heaven here at our school in Torrance. It's called Gracie University. Very common thing, which is when people, men in particular, stop coming to class for a while. Like, say they stub a toe, professionally they get caught up with a work mission, 2 or 3 weeks go by. Their wives are the ones who tell them to go back to class.
Wow. Yeah.
So that should tell you something.
Mm-hmm.
Patience, right? Humility,
Get submitted all the time. Yeah.
patience, right? The energy, right? Letting that energy out, that physical release of jiu-jitsu, all the principles, right, that we talk about in the book, that are reinforced every single day, the problem-solving principles, the clock principle, the win-wins, right? All of these aspects that are so prominent on the mat leak into every aspect of our lives. We become better fathers, better husbands, right? Better brothers, better bosses, better employees. Every aspect of your life,
Wow.
you will be a better performer in that capacity with the principles of jiu-jitsu in your arsenal, right? In your problem-solving arsenal. Because when you deal with adversity in the unique and effective ways that jiu-jitsu deals with adversity on a daily basis, you can't not allow it to spill into every other aspect of your life. Once you're efficient somewhere, you're efficient everywhere. How you are anywhere is how you are everywhere. And jiu-jitsu, it just reprograms us in the ways that I already explained, such that when you go home or you go to the office or you're existing anywhere else, you're not the same human being anymore. You're different. You're wired differently. And this is where the addiction comes from, right? It becomes a new source of your, right, your mental and psychological programming. And if you detach from it for an extended period of time, it's a perishable skill, right? It's a perishable relationship. So it's one that we want to keep close to heart at all times, and the regular practice will constantly reinforce that.
What are the principles of jiu-jitsu that teach an individual how to gain more confidence and how to understand and really know the psychology of any human being they interact with?
Great question. There isn't a principle that teaches confidence. There is an art that, when practiced, unavoidably builds confidence in the practitioner. We have a student, Maximo, a young kid, maybe 10 years old, has been bullied for 3 years now. Incessant bullying. It's affecting the parents. It's affecting the family. They've talked to the school. They've talked to the principals. They're on the brink of pulling this kid out of school. And then we came into the summer break right now, so it's a little breather, but they're literally on the fence. And they came in to Gracie University. And the mom is, again, what do we do? But they saw a video online of a transformation for a bullying victim that we did, where we flew a kid from Indiana and we transformed him in 1 week after getting pummeled on a video in the locker bay. We transformed this young man named Austin, went home, never had problems with bullying again, completely transformed his life, became a U.S. Marine, absolute stud.
Wow.
And her whole life changed at Gracie University. So anyways, they saw that video. They showed Maximo, and he liked the video, and I want to do this. So he came to class, starts doing jiu-jitsu with us. It's been just the summer right now. He has 2 stripes on his white belt, which is like 20 classes. So very new. He was at Junior Guards, which is a lifeguard training program. He's a very good swimmer. And a friend, him and Ozzy, his friend, were hanging out, and another boy came over and was bullying Maximo. So was being quite aggressive with him, making inappropriate jokes and really making fun of him. And then Ozzy stands up and says, "Hey man, leave him alone." Kind of just steps in and intervenes there. And then the bully turns and starts attacking Ozzy, physically and verbally. And then this is Maximo's moment of truth.
Oh, wow.
Because he never asserted himself ever against this opposition, against this type of aggression. So he stands up, he puts himself between Ozzy and the bully and says, "Hey, if you're messing with him, you're messing with me." The guy throws his hands up, mumbles something, turns and walks off.
Wow.
For the first time in his life, Maximo just learned that on the other side of setting a boundary with powerful voice, powerful eyes, and powerful posture is freedom. He's free. He's free. The mom came in. I couldn't believe it. Rener, we celebrated this.
Wow.
Unbelievable. Everything you guys said worked exactly as we mentioned. But again, the only way he was able to set this boundary was because he had spent 20 hours building the skills to feel like, no, if you want to get down, we get down. So the jiu-jitsu that he learned, learning how to fight, prevented him from having to fight. And if he ever has to get down, he's ready. He knows that, which is why he can set that boundary.
Do you feel like you ever face a battle or a war in your own mind? Or do you feel like, whenever there's an adversity, you have a sense of peace and confidence that you'll be able to figure it out because you've just been through adversity so much? Or do you have anxiety and stress?
No, I don't. There are stressful moments,
Yes.
right? When it all comes at the same time, you go, okay, the stress is having multiple opportunities, sometimes positive opportunities, and not knowing where to shuffle and spend your time from a leader of multiple businesses. So I deal with, like everyone, I just have a lot going on.
Yes.
And I got to choose. So that's kind of like a eustress, right? Versus the distress, right? Which is the one that you're kind of overwhelmed by in a negative way. But in terms of like what's going through my head throughout this process, it always is a faith, a trust.
Wow.
That, hey, no. I've been in way worse in fights against guys that are 300 pounds.
Yeah, upside down on your head.
Headlock smashing, guy on top of me, sweating on me, and I'm down there. And all I'm thinking is, he makes one mistake, I'm coming out, I'm going to get him on the chokehold on the way out.
Wow.
No problem. I've been here before.
Really?
So in life, when it's all coming at you, all I'm saying is, this is the bottom of the mount. It's okay. Bottom of the mount is not the best place to be in a fight, but because of jiu-jitsu, it's also not the worst. And when the opportunity presents itself, the right move at the wrong time is the wrong move. Timing is everything. This is the clock principle.
Say it again.
The right move at the wrong time is the wrong move. So if I can't escape right now, that's okay. Because, right, it's going to shift. The opportunity will present itself and the circumstances will change. And when they change, my opportunity will present itself. I literally live that every single day in jiu-jitsu. When things are not favorable, they will become favorable. You just must be patient. And you just must wait for the opportunity if it's not an actionable opportunity available to you right now. It will be there. So in life, when it feels like it's all coming from every angle, I just sometimes will just breathe. Say, okay, right now, what am I going to focus my energy on? I might be neglecting 20 other things in my life, but I got to do this right now. So this is what I choose. And I commit to this. This is the technique I'm going to apply right now. If it pans out, great. If halfway through my application of this life technique, it doesn't pan out, I will pivot principle 21.
Yeah.
And off we go. And that's okay. And I'll pivot then. But I'm not going to stress now about whether or not this is going to pan out fully, because I know when the circumstances change, I am also capable of change in that moment.
Wow. You've got 32 principles that you've learned from your family history, from the martial arts history in jiu-jitsu. And there's 5 that I wanted to cover today.
Yeah, let's talk about
some. If we, from the book, there's 5 that I think if people started to tap into and started to say, how can I apply this to my life right now? What are a few key principles to give me more confidence, give me more poised, to give me more focus, more commitment in my life.
I love it.
To be able to handle adversity, what would these few be? And there's one called the clock principle.
I want to get into
You
it.
mentioned this before already, that recognizing that the right move at the wrong time is the wrong move. Can you give me one example of what that is and how we can apply this to our life?
Sure. So there are 32 principles we've identified, clock principle being one critical, important in terms of timing, right? Timing in a fight, as you would imagine, it's everything. That spills over into our personal and professional lives as well. I had a situation where one time a psychologist who trained with us, a student of ours, a female psychologist, recommended a student to us. She said, Rener, I have a student, his name is Shane, young man, teenager, 16 years old, who suffers from the most severe case of social anxiety that I've ever seen as a doctor. He vomits profusely in going into any situation where there's any type of social aspect of it. And I think jiu-jitsu would be great for him, build his confidence. I said, great, bring him in. Thursday, talk to his mom. We scheduled it for Thursday. I scheduled it for a time where there was no one in the building, so he would be, no trouble stepping in and getting a tour. Mom calls me at 4:05, 4:10, 5 minutes after we're supposed to start the class, and says, Rener, sorry, we're not going to make it. I said, what do you mean? Where are you? She said, I'm outside in the parking lot, but we're not coming in.
He's terrified.
He can't do it.
Wow.
I said, hold on, you're outside my building right now? She said, yeah, that's me right there. I said, hold on, can I come say hi? Yes. I walk out. I get to the car. As I approach the car on the passenger side, it's parked on the streets of the curb, I hear the most intense gut cry I've ever heard.
Screaming, crying. Yeah.
Breathing, but crying, forcing it out. And I look at the mom and I say, I'm completely shocked in this moment. I've never experienced this before.
Wow.
I've never dealt with extreme social anxiety like this. And I'm looking at the mother who's standing outside the car on the passenger side to greet me. I don't know what to do. This is a situation, you have to understand, Lewis, when you put it in jiu-jitsu context, I'm on the bottom of a trapping bad situation and I don't have the technique. You don't have the skills or the tools. I don't know the move, but I have the principles. So in this moment, full trust that if I commit to the process, the principles will set me free. So in this moment, I see her and I said, look, can I go in the car? She says, yeah, of course. So I go to the passenger side. I open the door. I sit in the chair, back seat, passenger side. He's over here passenger side. I'm on the driver's side. And he's doubled over crying like this. And I'm just sitting watching him in the back seat here. Loud. 20 minutes. I don't say a word.
Holy cow.
Depletion principle. Sometimes the best way to win is just to avoid losing, let them deplete themselves.
Their energy.
Yes, you let them go. Imagine if I would have felt I had to hurry this up and get them in there. Never would have worked.
Right.
So I trusted in this moment, as I do every day in jiu-jitsu. Wait, deplete, the time will present itself.
Wow.
So I'm sitting 20 minutes later. He sits up, ran out of steam. And then I'm here.
What's up, buddy?
I said, hey, bro, what do you like to do for fun? Redirection principle. Video games. I said, tell me more. 15 minutes we're talking about video games. I know nothing about, I don't got time for video games. I don't play video games. I have no idea what he's talking about. Just asking questions about video games. He's telling me his whole life about video games. Loves them. He's all animated like extra. Now we're connecting. Boom. Once I felt that we were here, connection principle 1. There was a real connection in that car. We were now socially connecting about video games, something he loved that I redirected him towards. I said, hey, Shane, thanks for coming in. I said, we have a really nice facility and I'd love to give you a tour if you'll let me. Beautiful. Just show you around. What do you think? You like this? Okay.
That's cool.
I said, let's go. We get out of the car. We walk. We go in. I tour the museum, show some artifacts. I walk to the building. In my mind, at this point, all I'm thinking is, he cannot leave this building without doing jiu-jitsu today.
Wow.
I'm telling you, I'm sweating bullets inside.
How do I get it?
I got to get him on the mat. I got to get him to do jiu-jitsu. But if I say, hey, dude, you want to learn jiu-jitsu? He's running to the car, throwing up on the way out. I can imagine, right? So like, this is a high stress, we'll call it, an intense encounter where I'm on the fly pulling from my life of jiu-jitsu on the mats principles to try to get this accomplished, what I'm aiming to do for this kid. Because if he leaves without doing jiu-jitsu today, he's not coming back.
Never.
We're going to miss our window. So I walk in the locker room. I show him our beautiful locker room. It's like a spa, beautiful school. go outside. We're passing by the private training room. It's a room about this big, matted from wall to wall, mats on the floor. I open the door. I step in. Clock principle, the right move at the right time. I step on the mats with my feet, bare feet, and I say, hey, Shane, these mats are really, really soft. You should feel them. Take off your shoes and check this out. He complies. He walks in, steps on. I'm like, how about that? He's like, yeah, it's really soft. I'm like, cool. Mom, come on in. Shut the door. Got him.
Wow.
I say, Mom, have a seat. Shane, lay down in the middle right here. The exact same technique I showed you today. I mounted on him. We're friends now. We're connected.
Yeah.
And I'm getting very uncomfortable because I'm going to save this kid's life. That's my mindset. There's nothing that I wasn't willing to do in order to empower and free him from the condition that he's suffering from. Do you understand? Like,
Yes.
I'll be uncomfortable to save him. So I mount on him, which was, again, I don't know how he's going to react.
Maybe he's going to crick and scream.
I don't know.
Who knows?
So I mount on him with the biggest smile on my face and all the love in my heart. And I say, Shane, what would you do if someone was on top of you like this? The smile, love. He was like, I'll push you off. I'm like, give it a go. 10, 9, 8, 7. He's trying hard.
Yeah.
I'm watching his senses the whole time, verifying that I'm connecting here. I'm making sure he's okay. He's fine. Fine, I can't get out. Okay, cool. Let's switch roles. I toss him off in 1 second with the trap and roll. You know the move. Click. He's like, oh man, do it again. I do it again. He can't believe it. I show him second move, third move, fourth move, fifth move. An hour later, we're having the best time. He's doing jiu-jitsu. I look over to the corner. His mom is crying quietly.
Cool. Wow.
Like just tears just falling.
It's amazing.
Doesn't say a word the whole class. And I'm like, I could not believe it. I get up, we shake hands. Hey, let's see you guys on Tuesday, right? The next class. Next class, it only takes him 15 minutes to get out of the car. The third class, he comes back half the time. He goes into the locker room, he throws up, comes out, ready to rock.
Wow.
We're getting in there. I eventually transitioned him to another one of our certified instructors who guides him for the next several months. He goes into group classes now with other people practicing. He eventually earns his blue belt in jiu-jitsu, graduates high school, goes to college, lives a normal life, has regular friendships, and is now having a great life.
Wow.
The doctor has said, Rener, I've never seen this type of turnaround for this particular condition, this level of social anxiety. I've never seen it. This is incredible. Congratulations and thank you. And she sent us so many other students since then.
That's cool.
Then they start in private classes. Then we gradually introduce them. So this is depletion. This is redirection principle, all in the book. This is connection principle, using every resource we have to connect with them in a way that's meaningful for them.
Yes.
This is the clock principle above all, I believe. Because for me to be in there, not sure what I was going to do with this kid, and then the moment I was on the mat saying, hey, take off your shoes, come feel this. The right move at the right time will set you free. And that's what happened with Shane
That's a beautiful story,
on this
man.
fateful morning.
I love that story, man. That's beautiful. Okay, what is this Kazushi principle?
So thank you. Yeah, the Kazushi principle, we talk about it in the book as, you read that one or no? Let's pull it up.
Seeking first to understand, then to be understood.
There you go. That's our life definition of the Kazushi principle. And what this book aimed to do is there's the combat definition of each principle and applied in a fight. And then there's a life definition of the same principle. The book teaches us the life definition. But what I told the publisher is I said, look, jiu-jitsu is so physical. It's so visual. It's so auditory. I don't think I can accomplish all that I want to accomplish by merely writing about these principles on paper, ink on paper. So I'm only going to write this book if you will permit me to insert a QR code on the first page of every chapter
So you can see the demonstration.
so that they can scan it, launch it, river principle, QR code.
Wow.
So every single chapter starts with this QR code. They agreed. And you scan it, you watch a 5 to 7 minute video in which we demonstrate
That's cool.
perfectly clear as the moves you saw today.
Yes.
The physical, the combat application of that principle. And once you see that and you go, oh, that's the posture principle. That's the river principle. That's the Kazushi principle. Perfectly clear in your mind. Then we segue into the book where you read about the life and business application of the very same principle. This is how I do keynotes all over the world for corporations, right? Where I go in and I have a stage, I demonstrate the combat application, then I convert that to the life and business application, but I'm there in the room so they can see that. And I've had so much success with those that when I wrote the book, it was my number one goal, my number one objective to make sure the book had the same potency, the same impact as these keynote presentations that I've done for audiences, even ones who don't practice jiu-jitsu, right? They understand what I'm saying when I show them. So it's very interactive. It's very stimulating visually, psychologically, and then everything I say lands on a perfect kind of fertile soil because they understand the physical context.
Right.
So that's what the book aims to do. Now, the Kazushi principle, right? Until you guys get the book and have a chance to scan the QR code and see my physical demonstration, the easiest way to explain this principle is, right, these cameras are on tripods and there's 3 legs. If you remove one of the legs, the camera falls. That's the Kazushi principle. You're breaking the balance of your adversary in a fight. You're aiming to off-balance them. Simple. There's 2 ways to do that. By removing base points or by moving their center of gravity to a position where they can no longer stay upright. Rather simple physical concept, right? And easy to demonstrate. When it comes to life, the Kazushi principle leans more on this idea of seeking first to understand, then to be understood. Now,
Most people don't have that, though. They want to be understood.
Yeah.
They want everyone to understand them first.
And here's how jiu-jitsu...
And when they don't feel understood, they lash out on everyone. They get angry. They get upset. They have an attitude. They get frustrated.
And this is where jiu-jitsu beats that out of you, Lewis. Here's why. In jiu-jitsu, you cannot break the balance of a subject, of a person, whose balance you don't first understand.
Wow.
If I want to trip you, I need to understand why you're structurally sound where you stand or where you sit or where you kneel. Once I understand the essence of your base, or your pyramid is another principle, the pyramid principle. Once I understand the structure of your pyramid, only then can I break the pyramid and off balance you. So if that's true in a fight, every day you practice jiu-jitsu, you learn that you must, when applying Kazushi principle to life, you must seek first to understand whoever it is, their way of thinking, their motives, their concerns, before you aim to change their way of thinking to be more in alignment with your own. Whether you're selling something, whether you're selling an idea, whether you're trying to recruit someone for an initiative at work, whether you're trying to convince your kids that we should go this way instead of that way on a particular thing in their youth, whatever it is, seek first to understand, then to be understood. We had a student who came in. A mom brought her daughter in for a class. The daughter was 5 years old for our Little Champs class in Gracie Bully-Proof, our kids program.
Wow.
The mom brings her in. Terrible first experience. I wasn't the one teaching the class, and I can say that now enthusiastically because we've changed everything to make sure this never happens again, and it's explained thoroughly in the book. Terrible first experience. She basically went on Yelp and she wrote this review that was the most scathing 1-star Yelp review I've ever gotten. Oh my gosh, I went in there, nobody noticed us, no one talked to us on our first day, my daughter got paired up with another girl, it was a terrible experience, this, that, and the other. It's all about why nobody noticed her when she was struggling with the technique, no one helped her, just scathing. And I read this after the fact. You get the little ping, Yelp, 1-star, holy cow, what is this? I read it right away. I went, hold on. My impulse was, how dare her disgrace us with a review like this? My impulse. That's the resistance that we naturally, we all, that's all it's the fight back instead of, no, hold on, Kazushi, jiu-jitsu, yield, understand, acceptance principle. So in this case, I said, hold on, she's not wrong. She deserves better than what she got. I called all my managers to the office and I said, guys, listen to this. And I put her on speaker and I called the mom. Her name was Myra. Her daughter's name was Miranda. I didn't know what was going to happen. I'm going in.
You called her randomly.
Going in, coach.
Wow.
And I get on this call with her and I say, Myra, I see that you had a really unpleasant first experience with your daughter here. Can you tell me more about it? Oh, well, Henry, this is the owner? Yeah, this is the owner of the school. Oh, wow. Thank you for calling. I'm happy to. I want to know everything.
Wow.
Bro, she just let it go. Long talk, every detail. And I'm validating and I'm listening and I'm understanding and I'm putting myself in her shoes. I have kids as well now, so this is meaningful to me. So I'm going in with her all the way. At the very end, I say, Myra, I'm so sorry that this happened to your daughter. You trusted us with her first class and we did not deserve that trust. We did not uphold and we did not deliver the introduction to jiu-jitsu that she deserved from us. I said, let me say this. First of all, based on what you wrote and what we now understand, changes are already being implemented so that no student, boy or girl, ever experiences this once in the future in our Gracie Bully-Proof program. This will never happen again. That was the first and the last. I said, number 2, that's for everyone else. For you, we need your daughter to get the introduction that she deserves. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to offer you a private session with myself.
That's cool.
And I want you, mom, to be there with your daughter. And I want to introduce you guys to jiu-jitsu the way it should be done. We did it. I brought one of our female instructors, Bobby, with me to assist. And we had the best class ever, laughing, playing games, jiu-jitsu. The mom was elated because she said, Henry, I always wanted to do jiu-jitsu. I couldn't afford it as a kid. And now I can for my daughter. So the fact that you brought me in to try this is amazing. Not only did the daughter continue after this, both of them continued learning jiu-jitsu. Cool. And I said, guys, one class, I'm glad you loved it, but I also want to sponsor a month of free private classes so that you guys can really get into the swing of things. And then after that, you can continue however you want. If we deserve you, everything changed because I sought first to understand, then to be understood. Kazushi principle applied to business in this case and relationships.
Wow, that's beautiful, man. It's a great principle. And hard to do when you feel like you're on the defense or someone's attacking you or someone's judging you or someone doesn't, I understand you and they're just talking about whatever they want to say from their perspective. It's hard to listen, drop your guard, connect. And you could have still made all those offers on that call and they could have said, screw you, I don't want to do anything.
But the moment I opened the call, hey, Mike.
Yeah.
It was so jiu-jitsu, Lewis, when I first spoke to her. It was so yield. It was so...
Right.
It was non-combative. It was so de-escalatory and so truly seeking to understand her that she felt that from the first word that came out of my mouth.
Wow.
So...
That's great. And it's, going to the third principle that I wanted to talk about, which is the acceptance principle. Recognizing when it's better to yield than to resist.
Similar. There's parallels. And this is what you'll notice in jiu-jitsu, in a fight and in life. They're constantly interweaving of these principles. One particular threat scenario might require the deployment of 4 or 5 principles to create a technique for that particular situation.
To work, yeah.
Yes, so just so you know, they're always intertwining, but there are subtle differences, and they're very clearly outlined in the book. But the acceptance principle, right? There's so many times in a fight where you have to yield. And the way I think about it is this. Let's say we're physically engaged in a very intense grapple or intense situation, and you accomplish something against me or prevent something of my effectiveness against me. You're doing something where it's clear to me that what I intended to do was not reliable in that moment and that you are getting the better of me, or I'm going to fall off. Let's just say I'm on the top and I'm going to fall off of you. There comes a moment where I realize that the outcome is inevitable. It's going to happen. Whoever's first to accept the inevitability of that outcome is the first to prepare for the result of that outcome. You feel me? So if at the 50% point of the move, I recognize that it's a lost cause, then I can either hold on for dear life and fight till 100, or I can use the remaining 50% of that window to begin preparing my counterattack. And then you might get on top of me, but I catch you in a guillotine choke on your way up because I accepted the inevitability of that outcome.
Wow.
This is as true in life and business as it is in a fight. You have to recognize where things are headed and then say, okay, this is it. Let's roll with this.
That's beautiful.
So for one situation here was my wife and I had a very intense discussion one night before we were married about parenting and about work in the household. Very interesting. A discussion everyone should have if they're thinking about getting married, which my philosophy was the one that I was kind of hammered with my whole life, which is women are cook, clean, don't ask questions, do everything else I don't feel like doing, and that is your existence, right? This is a Brazilian cultural indoctrination and like
machismo type
of very Brazil. So I grew up, that's in my DNA, to be clear, like inescapable.
That's what you witnessed with
That's
your
what I witnessed my whole life
parents,
growing up. That's
yeah.
all I knew. It's the only model I knew was what my mom is there just hustling and bustling and doing miracles behind the scenes, but that's it, right? So anyway, so now I'm about to think about getting married with someone who I'm dating seriously for many years, and I say, babe, just so we're on the same page, like, you kids, I'm work, like, this is what it is.
What you say?
So hold on. We can't celebrate too much because listen. So it was really crazy because in my mind there was no other option. No, she sat down, bro. We sat down at 11:30 at 4:30 a.m. At 4:30 a.m. we reached the conclusion of this. Her point was, Henry, I understand that you're there. I grew up in a family. My mom is like in immigrations and customs enforcement, ICE, U.S. ICE. She's a national, like a federal law enforcement attorney for the government. Her dad's a psychologist. Her brother's a scientist. Her sister's a psychologist. And she's a USC engineering grad on a full academic scholarship. All geniuses, this family. And she said, Henry, all I ever saw was my mom working 40, 50, 60 hours a week as a young woman growing up.
Yeah.
And I am who I am today because of that influence. And we're all healthy and we're all doing great. And then I internally at the moment, I'm thinking to myself, hold on, that's a good point. Her parents are still married.
Together, they're healthy, happy.
Which is the most remarkable part. Here I am. My parents are long divorced when I was 12 years old, right? I got a bunch of siblings. They're not doctors and psychologists and scientists. And like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I love my sisters and brothers, but you know, there's just, her record is impeccable. Working parents, both.
Happy.
Married, happy, love and respect for each other and for the kids and the kids for each other. And we're in a house, everyone's trying to choke each other every day. So I'm like, after 4.5 hours of her trying to convince me that there is an alternate way, I kind of saw where this was headed. I'm like, holy cow.
How old were you then?
We're early dating, so give it 10, 12 years ago. So I'm, mid-20s probably, 25, 27, when this discussion is happening. And I'm telling you, I went in ready for war because there was no way we're going to end. So we're having this discussion, and the conclusion becomes clear that at the end, she was so clear that, Henner, like, I don't want to offend your history, but the fact is there are other ways of raising a family. And my family's model is great. And I love my family. We all love each other and we're all successful and it worked. Yeah, I wish my mom was home some more. Yes. But guess what? The influence of her not being home and killing it was good for the family. It was good for leadership and set a great example for me. I went, wow, I can't argue with that. So here was my final statement to her. I accepted. The acceptance principle kicked into gear. And I said this, I said, Eve, I can't argue with what you're saying. I said, here's all I have to trust in. Is that if you're as committed to being a mom in whatever form that looks like for you, as you have been to every other endeavor of your life, of which there have been many major accolades and accomplishments, then we're going to be just fine.
Right.
I have to trust.
Right.
And I did. And I was right. And today she runs Gracie University. She's the head instructor for Women Empowered. She's amazing on every front. We have a great marriage. We have great kids. They're inspired by us both. And I couldn't be happier that I escaped the cage that I was in. This belief that this cultural, indoctrination, this cultural hierarchy of man, woman, it's gone. And I'm like, holy cow, to think that I was trying to force something that not only would have affected our family negatively, it would have certainly thrashed our marriage potential because I saw what that did to a marriage. And I actually want to be married to her. Like, I don't want a wife. I want to be married to Eve. Wow. You feel me? It's a big difference. I don't just want to be married to have kids. I want to be in the relationship. So the question is, if that format for her is what's necessary for her to feel that she's exercising the muscles and really doing the work and contributing to society is what fuels her soul, such that when she comes home, she's also fired up about the contribution she's having to society and people around the world. Like I do, like that's where I get my fuel. If that's what she needs too, then guess what? We both get it. And then when we're at home, we both have it to give to each other.
So it sounds like you used the previous principle, which is to seek to understand. Maybe you resisted first.
I didn't want to understand that. I came in like, let's go.
But then,
black belt, let's fight. I'm telling you.
But then eventually you understood.
Yes.
You accepted, which is this principle. And then you used the river principle, which is to overcome obstacles by flowing around them.
Yes.
So you weren't resistant. You were, and that was causing a friction. But
acceptance and river. Acceptance and river are very closely correlated because as the water flows down the river and the rock presents itself, the water does not bother with the rock. The water flows where the rock is not. This is the river principle. In a fight, I can't tell you, in a 5-minute sparring session with another black belt or brown belt at high level, I can't tell you how many roadblocks I hit, how many rocks appear. But guess what? I don't have time to focus on the arm bar that is no longer available. I've got to catch the triangle choke that is now present because the arm bar was prevented. The triangle is available, but you never see the triangle if you're fixated in mourning the loss of the arm bar. And this is why some organizations, some people thrive in adversity, and other organizations and other people, individuals, they kind of flutter and drown in adversity, right? If you think about it, whether it's a personal setback, a organizational setback, a national setback, a global setback, a health pandemic, Why is it that some prevail and some drown? It's because in adversity, some dwell on what's not possible, while others, right, they flourish in what new opportunities are available. It's literally the river principle applied on any scale you want. So this happened to me December 27th, 2016. I'm at the park with my son. We're running around and I'm chasing him. He's chasing squirrels. I'm chasing him. And I have a hoodie on. It's like 10 a.m. The families are all there. It's 2 days after Christmas. So all the in-laws are at the park with us. And it's a cloudy morning, but the sun starts peeking through the cloud. I'm wearing my hoodie and I'm like, man, I take off my hoodie. I don't need it anymore. Like it's California, always on, off, right? Is it a hoodie day or is it a t-shirt day? And same day, you might change 15 times throughout the day. So I take off my hoodie and I consider tying it around my waist, right? I'm taking the two hands and I'm going for the tie. And in that moment, as the hands were going to go tie around the waist, they would not connect. All I could say was, I'm a cool dad. I swear. I just couldn't do it. I couldn't do the fanny pack. I couldn't tie it around. I didn't want to do it. Hey, I didn't want to do it. So I took it and I draped it over one shoulder and then I bent over to pick up my son, like, loosely over one shoulder.
Yeah,
it fell off the shoulder and it fell on the wet grass. It was so frustrating, bro. In that moment, I'm like, are you kidding me? Here I am trying to not be fashion faux pas and I pay the price with the hoodie getting a little muddy on the wet grass in the morning. This is so ridiculous. So there was that moment of frustration. There was the rock. I picked up the hoodie. I picked up the kid, called the in-laws. We left. I got home. I took the hoodie that I was wearing. I took a pair of scissors, shoestrings, paper clips, and duct tape. And I disappeared. All the in-laws are there. Everyone's having a good time. Brunch. We're all there. I'm gone. 30 minutes. I'm gone. No one even knows where I'm at. They don't even notice I'm gone. I come out of the office 30 minutes later with a functioning prototype of a hoodie that turns into a fully functional backpack.
That's cool.
And the only thing cooler than the hoodie that turns into a backpack is the fact that today we have the first ever School of Greatness.
Oh, you got one. That's cool.
School of Greatness.
Nice.
Custom quick flips.
I like it.
So the listeners will have to watch the YouTube video, but for those who are on YouTube or the channel checking it out, inside goes your hoodie, one tuck, one turn, and out comes your fully functional backpack.
That's epic. It's both sides. You got the logo.
Yep,
That's
this goes
pretty
on,
epic.
and it's a functional. You put things inside of it as a backpack. There's a pocket for your wallet, keys, and cell phone additionally. This goes on, and you know how these backpacks, sometimes they're too loose? So I created the world's flattest cord lock. Look, so it tightens up. So now you can wear this anywhere, run, bike, hike, parkour, jiu-jitsu. It's not going to fall off your back. When you're done, you just pop these locks. This comes off. You open this up. Look. You one here. I reach in, count to 3, Lewis. Too slow. We're already back to the hoodie. First ever School of Greatness. That's XL. That's your size right there.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate it.
And I did one extra one.
That's cool.
Which is a large. And this is a little sticker that says stop. This is also a backpack.
That's amazing.
So you scan that. But anyways, so I did another one, Lewis. This one is to give away to the most loyal School of Greatness podcast listener in the world.
I love it,
You get to choose who this one goes to.
I love it.
Okay?
I'm
so
excited.
These all turn into backpacks.
If you guys want this, leave a comment on
share
YouTube
this,
right
leave
now.
a comment, you guys. Comment that you want the quick flip.
I love it, man.
School of Greatness collaboration. So what's crazy is initially it launched, we went to Shark Tank.
So
after I did the video, Shark Tank, it was amazing showing. They loved it. And we went, after Shark Tank, it really blew us up. And then we started getting calls. Intel, Google, Warner Brothers ordered 3,000 hoodies for all their producers with the Warner Brothers logo on it. You know, all these different organizations are wanting custom wholesale, like branded quick flips. And then we got the call, Universal Studios for the parks, Disneyland, Avengers hoodie turns into an Avengers quick flip. Makes perfect sense on and off throughout the entire day. So quick flip was born. I invented this on that fateful Tuesday morning, and now it's a global organization that I have a partner who runs the whole thing and does an amazing job. His name is Jordan. Again, I'm not an apparel guy. I tripped and invented a hoodie. You feel what I'm saying? And I solved a problem that we've always all had, not because I went to school or fashion design or because I have a business degree. I have none of that. I only have jiu-jitsu. And with the river principle in my back pocket, when I was frustrated by the moment of, I don't want to tie this around my waist. This is so stupid that this is all we have to carry a hoodie. America can do better. That's what I felt in my moment. We can do better.
Yeah.
So when I go home and invent the solution to this, now a company is born. And now besides jiu-jitsu, I'm doing this and the world is better because they have hoodies that turn into backpacks and they don't have to equal that frustration. When I leave the house in the morning and I'm going to the park with my son, let's say it's a sunny morning, I put his hoodie inside the backpack. Right? And I put it on my back. So now I have my hoodie, my backpack, and his hoodie inside. It gets cold later. I pull out his hoodie, give it to him, pull out my hoodie, put it on, and I'm not lugging around an empty backpack.
That's amazing. I love it, man. I love it, man. The creativity. This is amazing. In your book, you got 32 principles. We just talked about 4 of them. I'm going to cover one more because I want everyone else to get the book. Again, the 32 principles. This is about harnessing the power of jiu-jitsu to succeed in business, relationships, and life. Make sure you guys get this by Rener Gracie. It's an awesome book and an awesome introduction to just more philosophies about jiu-jitsu and how you can apply them to your life. The last one I want to talk about, again, there's 32 of them. We're only going to talk about a few today, but the last one is really the Grandmaster Principle. Now, what is the Grandmaster Principle, and what does it take for anyone to be a Grandmaster of their own life?
So let me say this. As I was developing the curriculum of the 32 principles with my brother, we got to the point where we had identified, because we did not invent principles, right? Principles, gravity always existed.
You revealed them.
We revealed them and we classified them and we named them and then we put them into a curriculum. So as we're going through this rigorous process of identifying these principles over an extended period of time and trying to create a cohesive curriculum surrounding them, we got to 31. And then I ran out. And I'm thinking to myself, we can't end with 31. It's not an even number. 8 times 4 is 32. I want this to be a little more, right?
Yes.
Encapsulated. I want to be more buttoned up with this. There needs to be one more. And I'm thinking, and literally I'm running dry. I'm telling you, this is like lots of time spent identifying these 31, you can imagine, and just really identifying them and defining them. And then I'm like, man, I don't know what I'm going to do for 32. And I'm in the shower, literally, boom, doing my thing. And then it freaking hit me. The final principle must be the principle of applying all the principles and constantly evolving their application in your own life. It's the principle of all the principles.
Yes.
And I said, well, then that sounds awesome. What are we going to call it? Let's name it after my grandfather, the Grandmaster Principle, right? So we just gave it that name. This one we kind of pulled up and pulled out and said, this is what it's going to be. So what it is this idea that my grandfather, when he learned as a young boy, as I gave you the introduction and the story of his beginning, my grandfather, after he started modifying these techniques as a young teenager and becoming the kind of the champion of the family, he didn't have a teacher, right? There was no instructor. When he was 19, 20, he was on his own now. He was evolving the art, but he was his own teacher.
Wow.
But here's the problem for most people. They don't give themselves permission to be their own teacher. They're always waiting for someone to guide, someone to tell, someone to instruct. And what I've learned through jiu-jitsu, and it was most pronounced when I got my black belt. I'd been training for 19 years, my whole life, right? At 19 years old, my grandfather awards me my black belt. And it was such a surreal moment because at that moment I said, wow, now I've achieved the belt that I've always dreamt of, and all my legendary uncles are, and my dad, and all the heroes of this family, world famous fighters. I now have the same belt as them. It's black. But I feel like there's still so much more to go. And then I realized in time thereafter that no one's going to give me all the answers. I must become my own teacher to grow into the master that I am meant to be. Because by being a black belt and knowing that I didn't have all the answers yet, then it was like, holy cow, I thought when I got my black belt, I would be done, close the book, my movie's over. I have all the moves and I'm set. It wasn't the case. I would go so far to say
That's just beginning.
Just the beginning. True, the black belt is the white belt who never quit. There's all these sayings, but really the black belt is when it really does just begin, because now you have a grip on the art and the amount of innovation. I would say that I've invented more techniques and done more and learned more and grown more from black belt till now than I did from white to black belt.
Wow.
In terms of how much new jiu-jitsu exists in my life. So there's so much to learn. There's so much to invent. It's endless. So that being said, the black belt was permission to become my own teacher. So the Grandmaster Principle, as we end the book, is my very deliberate attempt to empower every reader to become their own teacher, right? I've given you our operating system in a book. I've given you 32 videos to teach you the physical application of these techniques so that they're contextually relevant discussions when we enter the pages of the chapter and we start talking about life and business application. I've set the framework for you to absorb all of these principles and make the jiu-jitsu black belt's operating system your own. Whether you've ever done jiu-jitsu or not doesn't matter. You're going to be able to essentially download, right, through your own study of this book, our operating system. You get to skip the line, so to speak. Now, at the end of all this, I have 2 requests in the Grandmaster chapter. Number 1, trust yourself enough with the material that I've provided to be your own teacher, to make the adjustments on the fly, to create techniques in the middle of nowhere. Like I said, I'm in a situation with Shane that I don't have a move. I've never been there before. But because I had these principles, guess what? The moves, it revealed themselves to me. But I'll tell you this right now. No technique ever revealed itself to me that I didn't first believe was possible. Right? If I didn't believe that Shane was a solvable puzzle, I wouldn't have entered the car to begin with.
Right.
And that's what most people are missing. The belief that the answer is out there. The belief that if they seek, they shall find, whether it be through a book, through a mentor, through a practice of a martial art, the answers are out there. Whatever you're struggling with, someone has dealt with it before. Now, you can pursue that information, reconnaissance principle, and gather that information, or you can trust that it exists, put yourself in the trenches, and let yourself reveal the answer on your own. That's another viable option. But you need to have an operating system that is designed for dealing with adversity. And that's what I think this book does above everything else. The second request, as I wrap up the book, is please give jiu-jitsu a try. Because, of course, as I said in the very beginning, my number one problem, as I said in the beginning, 99.9% of people know jiu-jitsu, but have never given it a try. I'm not going to rest until all of them have given it a try. And if I don't succeed, I'll die trying. That's my legacy. That's what I want to do here, right? All of the schools, hundreds of schools we have around the world, a website, gracieuniversity.com, specifically for people who don't have a school near them. They can learn online from home, and every one of our lessons is in order. So you can actually learn all the techniques. And actually, once you learn the material, you can go to one of the schools and test for a belt promotion because all of it's there, what you need for each of the milestones as you're climbing through this journey. So this website was done with this mindset. If you're too scared to go to a school, log on to gracieuniversity.com, watch the first 3, 4, 5 lessons for free. And then once you see them and you go, holy cow, I could do this. Then you go find a school and then you go train somewhere and you continue the journey. So my goal is to create the avenues through which anyone can be introduced to jiu-jitsu. If they have an internet connection or a school near them, then there's no excuse. Go give jiu-jitsu a try. Now, like I said, you have to be very selective with who you let teach you in the beginning because injuries are so common at schools where, and the number one criteria that I will just say is if they have a school where beginners, brand new students, are sparring with other beginners, it's a disaster waiting to happen because I don't know enough to keep myself safe, which means I panic, which means I'm not keeping you safe. So we're both liabilities to each other. And sadly, 99% of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu schools are having beginners spar within a few weeks, if not on the first day. So it's quite a disaster. So for our schools, we don't do that. You're going to be a beginner for several months. You're going to be learning all the mechanics of how to move safely, of how to do joint locks, of where you're safe, where you're not, so that when you eventually spar at a higher level, you can do so without hurting yourself or someone else. So that's my cautionary tale. But like I said, I want everyone who reads this book, by the time they're done, to say, holy cow, I've got the operating system. Let me go try the art that everyone, Mark Zuckerberg included, is falling in love with. And now, the great Lewis of School of Greatness.
I'm going to do it also, man. Next week.
There you go.
Next couple weeks, I'm in.
All it took was your first class being done right. And you're like, okay, welcome to jiu-jitsu. You're okay. You're on the other side now. And that's how I believe this is. There's an entire population of the world, but they're split into 2 groups. People who've done jiu-jitsu and people who don't. And the people who don't can be karate, can be taekwondo, can be this, and they can even be other grappling arts. Jiu-jitsu is the one. And it's not the one, not that there aren't other arts of other grappling arts that are easy. You might have someone that's very proficient and can defeat someone who does jiu-jitsu. But back to square one, jiu-jitsu, the reason jiu-jitsu is the best is because it can do the most for the people with the least physical attributes in the least amount of time. There's no other art that can do more for someone with less than jiu-jitsu. Quote me on that.
I got it, man. Me on that. 32 principles, harnessing the power of jiu-jitsu to succeed in business, relationships, and life. Make sure you guys get a few copies. We'll have all this stuff linked up as well. I got 2 final questions for you. But before I ask those questions, Henner, I appreciate you for demonstrating. And again, we'll link up the video where Henner just destroys me and shows me how incompetent I am as a human being.
Don't make it sound so
You know
bad,
what I mean?
bro. Hold on. But on the other side of that, there was a breakthrough. There was a moment of, imagine if you learn this.
Of course, no.
Just make sure you tell them that too, though.
It's smart though, because I was like, oh, how do I defend this? Well, come back for next class.
I gotcha.
Exactly, hook. But I want to acknowledge you for your commitment and your passion to bring this art and these strategies to the world. You know, I don't know if I've had someone this passionate on the show in probably 10 years.
I appreciate
about what they do.
About the mission.
Yeah,
about the
so
mission. Listen, I was born into this family. I didn't have a choice to start learning. I tried to quit at least 17 times when I was 11. Easily. Too close. You know what I'm saying? Too close.
Yeah.
I don't want to go, Dad. I don't want... Okay, you're staying home until I get back in 7 hours. Okay, I'll go.
Yeah.
Go to class and you do it. You rough it out and you make it happen. But the point is, I didn't have a choice to be born into this family. I started learning as a kid. I tried to quit when I was 11, 12. I started teaching at 13 years old.
Wow.
Once I saw, for my first student of my life, Robert Mendoza Jr., a 5-year-old boy who was getting bullied. Once I saved him, changed his life forever. His dad, Henner, I can't thank you. I'm 13 years old. And the dad is thanking me like I'm like, this holy figure. And I'm like, wow, that's pretty addicting.
Yeah.
It's pretty addicting to be the deliverer of freedom, of confidence, of
Peace.
truth,
Yeah,
jiu-jitsu, truth. And people coming to you with all kinds of problems, and jiu-jitsu being such a massive solution on the mat and off the mat.
Yes.
It's such a unique existence. So I became addicted to the giving aspect because, let's be honest, who are the happiest people you know? The ones who give the most.
The ones who are in service too.
Yes. So I got addicted to the service and the art, right? I'm in high school and some guy wants to tussle with me and I'm like, line them up. And I tap out the entire volleyball team, 13 guys on wood floor, hardwood. Everyone gets tapped out back to back.
Wow.
And one day at a volleyball practice, when the coach was late for practice, one guy wants to wrestle with me. I tap him out. Another guy puts his hand up. Everyone taps out. And then they go tell everyone in the whole school. And I'm like, wow, this is pretty cool to have a superpower. So the point is, going through high school with jiu-jitsu, it's a different species, a different existence. So all of these, I became addicted in so many different ways. And then when I started seeing how these jiu-jitsu principles started to serve me entrepreneurially, right, as a growing jiu-jitsu business, and then many other businesses, Quick Flip, sleeperhold.com, the travel pillow that I invented, you start to get addicted to the fact that, wow, if I apply jiu-jitsu, not just on the mat, but I apply it everywhere, this is crazy. So now it's done so much for me, both as a practitioner, as a disciple of the art, and as a deliverer, a messenger of the art, that all I think is, man, every single person that I touch and I infect with jiu-jitsu and I bring into jiu-jitsu, their life will forever change because of my enthusiasm, right? The energy, or what the world calls the henergy.
The energy. Where do you think it'd be if you were just, not just, but if you went through school as maybe an elite athlete in volleyball or swimming or some other sport, and you never did martial arts? Where do you think you'd be now if you never did martial arts?
Bro, that's like asking to strip the hydrogen away from H2O. You just can't. There's no water without hydrogen. Do you understand? There's no henner without jiu-jitsu. It doesn't exist. I didn't have a choice, and I'm glad I did not. Because everything good in my life today, I attribute to jiu-jitsu and these principles and their impact personally and professionally. So you can't separate what is actually inseparable. It fundamentally becomes something different. So then we're talking about a different movie, a different book, a different ending. I don't even care to know that person. I don't even care to know the henner without jiu-jitsu, because it's just another human being. And I could have excelled in many other categories. Great, as you've done as well. But you can't even call him henner with an R, pronounced with an H. You couldn't even do that because he's not a member of the Gracie family. He's not got this crazy name pronunciation.
Wow.
Everything falls apart without jiu-jitsu, bro.
I got to get more of this energy in my life, you know what I'm saying? This is a question I ask everyone at the end called the 3 truths. So imagine a hypothetical scenario. You live for as long as you want to live in this life, and you get to accomplish and create and experience all the beautiful things that you want. But for whatever reason, it's the last day for you in this life. It could be 100, 200 years away, whatever it is. And you've got to take all of your messages with you. This book is gone. This interview is gone. Every training program you've ever created, video, content, gone. No one has access to you anymore, except for 3 final truths that you get to share with the world. This is all they remember. What would those lessons be or those 3 truths be if that's all people had?
Help enough people get what they want, and you can have anything you want, would be one. A second truth, whoever manages the distance manages the damage. And the third truth would be, when we talk about advice, love and trust fully. Period. Because I think that you've never lived life. You've never lived life fully unless you've loved fully and trusted fully. I know many very successful people who have no love in their hearts and no trust in their hearts. And it doesn't matter what you reach, you're alone. And what value is a life of 200 years or less or more if you're alone?
Wow.
So anytime you have on this earth, do it loving fully and trusting fully in those closest to you. Even if it means you get hurt.
Oh, man, that's true.
You feel me? Even if you risk of getting hurt. That's the definition of courage. Knowing that things might not pan out, but you do it anyways.
Yes. Those are great 3 truths, man. Final question for you. What's your definition of greatness?
The progressive realization of a worthy ideal, which I got from someone. Was it Jim Rohn or Zig Ziglar? Right? The definition of greatness, the definition of success, the definition, whatever you set your mind to do that is meaningful for you. If it's share jiu-jitsu with the world, here we are. I'm doing my thing. If it's share messages of greatness with the world, this is greatness. If it's be a housewife and a mom because that's what you dreamt of and that's what you set out to do, that's greatness, right? So there's no categorical right and wrong. It's you are pursuing the path that you set for yourself because you determined that was the most meaningful existence for yourself. And if you're on that path, that's greatness. The problem is we live in a day and age where how many people are on a path that they just fell into to pay this, to do that. You know, I gotta pay bills, so I'm doing a job that I hate, spending 8-10 hours a day doing something I hate. And then after work, spending an hour going and doing, pickleball or handball or football or jiu-jitsu, an hour or 2 a week. My question is, in that situation, what are you doing to turn your passion into your profession?
Yes.
What deliberate steps are you taking so you can shift the balance, right? From a 80-20 to that 20% becoming the new 80. And maybe there's still some things you have to do that you don't wake up and are excited to do every single day. But the majority of your existence is in a pillar of what you determine to be greatness for yourself.
Now, why would I say that it is important to learn and concentrate on one thing specifically? Because this is the pure expression of what the Buddhist teaching or also the Shaolin teachings are about.